The house had always been quiet in a comforting way, the kind of silence that wrapped around you like a soft blanket after a long day. Daniel had grown used to it. He lived alone, worked from home, and followed the same gentle rhythm every day. Mornings with coffee by the window, afternoons filled with steady work, evenings with a book, or a muted television playing in the background. And always, at his feet, or somewhere nearby, was Milo. Milo had never been a demanding dog. He was loyal, calm, and strangely independent for a creature so devoted. He would nap for hours, occasionally lift his head to check where Daniel was, then settle again. When Daniel moved from room to room, Milo did not always follow. He trusted that his human would come back. That was how things had always been. Until one morning, everything changed. It started so subtly that Daniel almost missed it. He woke up earlier than usual, feeling slightly unsettled, though he could not explain why. The room felt heavier somehow, as if the air itself carried a quiet tension. When he sat up, Milo was already awake, sitting upright at the edge of the bed, staring directly at him. That was unusual. Milo usually slept longer than Daniel, often needing to be gently called before he would stir. But now he was alert, ears slightly back, eyes wide and fixed. When Daniel shifted his legs, Milo immediately moved closer, pressing his body tightly against him. "Hey, buddy," Daniel murmured, reaching out to pet him. Milo did not relax. His body remained tense, his breathing shallow. When Daniel stood up, Milo followed instantly, sticking so close that Daniel nearly tripped over him. At first, Daniel laughed it off. Maybe Milo was just feeling extra affectionate. Maybe something had startled him during the night. Dogs had moods, after all. But as the hours passed, the behavior did not stop. Every step Daniel took, Milo mirrored. If Daniel went to the kitchen, Milo was there. If he sat down, Milo pressed against his legs. If he stood, Milo stood too, never letting more than a small distance separate them. Even when Daniel closed the bathroom door, Milo scratched and whimpered outside, something he had never done before. By the afternoon, the unease began to settle into Daniel's chest. This was not normal. He tried to distract Milo with toys, with treats, even with a short walk. But outside, Milo refused to wander. He stayed glued to Daniel's side, constantly looking up at him, scanning his face, as if searching for something, or warning him. That thought lingered longer than Daniel wanted. There was something in Milo's eyes that he had never seen before. It was not just anxiety, it was urgency, a quiet, persistent fear. That night, things became worse. Daniel lay in bed, trying to sleep, but Milo would not settle. Instead of curling up at the foot of the bed as usual, he paced, back and forth, back and forth. His nails made a soft clicking sound against the floor, repeating over and over like a ticking clock. "Milo, come on," Daniel whispered. For a moment, Milo stopped. He looked at Daniel, head slightly tilted. Then slowly, he walked over and placed his front paws on the bed, resting his chin near Daniel's arm. His eyes did not close. They stayed open, watching, listening. The silence in the room felt different now. It was no longer comforting. It felt like something was missing, or perhaps something was waiting. Daniel reached out, placing his hand on Milo's head. Beneath his fingers, he could feel the tension, the subtle trembling. "What is it?" he asked softly, though he did not expect an answer. Milo's ears twitched, and then, very slowly, Milo turned his head toward the corner of the room. Daniel followed his gaze. There was nothing there, just shadows. Still, a strange chill ran down his spine. He forced himself to laugh quietly, shaking his head. "You are scaring me, you know that." But Milo did not look back at him. He kept staring, Minutes passed, or maybe longer. Time felt strange in that moment, stretched thin. Eventually, exhaustion pulled Daniel into a restless sleep, but it did not last. He woke suddenly, heart pounding, unsure why. The room was dark, silent, heavy. Milo was no longer on the bed. "Milo?" Daniel called quietly. No response. He sat up, his eyes adjusting to the darkness. At first, he saw nothing. Then, slowly, he made out a shape near the doorway. Milo, standing perfectly still, facing the hallway, his body was rigid, every muscle locked in place. "Milo," Daniel whispered again. This time, Milo reacted, but not in the way Daniel expected. He turned his head slowly, just enough for one eye to catch the faint light. There was something in that look that made Daniel's breath catch. Fear, not for himself, for Daniel. And then Milo let out a low, quiet sound. Not a growl, not a bark. Something softer, almost like a warning held deep in his throat. Daniel felt his skin prickle. He swung his legs off the bed and stood up. His movements careful, slow. "What is it, boy?" He took a step toward the door. Milo immediately moved, rushing to block him, pressing his body against Daniel's legs, trying to push him back. Hey, Daniel said, surprised. "What are you doing?" Milo did not back away. Instead, he looked up at Daniel, eyes wide, pleading. "Do not go." That was what it felt like. Daniel hesitated. The hallway beyond the door was dark, quiet, empty. At least, it should have been. He listened. At first, there was nothing. Then, faintly, he heard it. A sound so soft it almost blended into the silence. A slow, uneven breath. Not his own, not Milo's. Something else. Daniel froze. Every instinct told him to dismiss it, to explain it away. Maybe it was the house settling. Maybe it was something outside. Maybe his mind was playing tricks on him. But Milo's reaction made it impossible to ignore. Milo was shaking now, his body pressed tightly against Daniel, refusing to let him move forward. The sound came again. A breath, closer this time. From the hallway, Daniel felt his heart pounding in his ears. His mouth had gone dry. He took a step back. Immediately, Milo relaxed slightly, though his eyes remained fixed on the darkness beyond the door. "Okay," Daniel whispered. "Okay." He slowly closed the bedroom door. The moment the latch clicked into place, Milo let out a soft whine and climbed onto the bed, pressing himself tightly against Daniel's side, as if trying to shield him. Daniel sat there, staring at the door, listening. The breathing stopped, but the silence that followed was not comforting. It was heavy, waiting, and in that moment, Daniel understood something he could not fully explain. Milo was not acting strange without reason. He was trying to protect him from something Daniel could not yet see, but something that was very much there. Daniel did not sleep again that night. He lay still, staring into the darkness, every sense sharpened, every small sound amplified. Milo remained pressed against him, his body warm but tense, as if even the slightest movement might trigger something unseen. Time passed slowly. At some point, the faint grey light of early morning began to seep through the curtains. The room softened. The shadows retreated. And with the light, something else changed. Milo shifted. Not much, just enough for Daniel to notice. The tension in his body eased slightly, though he did not move away. He kept close, his head resting on Daniel's chest, listening. Always listening. Daniel let out a breath. He did not realize he had been holding. "Okay," he whispered. "It is morning. It is fine." But the words did not feel true. Carefully, he sat up. Milo lifted his head immediately, watching him. "I am just going to check," Daniel said quietly, more to himself than to the dog. Milo stood up as well. Daniel walked toward the bedroom door. And once again, Milo moved in front of him, not aggressively, not panicked, just firm, blocking. Daniel stopped, They stayed like that for a moment. One standing still, one refusing to let him pass. Then Daniel tried something different. He reached for the door handle, but instead of opening it, he simply rested his hand there. Milo reacted instantly. His ears flattened, his body stiffened. A low sound formed in his throat again. That same morning, Daniel slowly pulled his hand away. Milo relaxed just a little. "All right," Daniel said under his breath. "You do not want me to go out there." The realization settled deeper this time. Milo was not confused. He was not being clingy. He was making a decision, and that decision was to keep Daniel inside this room. Daniel stepped back from the door. "Then we wait," he said. The morning stretched on. Hunger eventually pushed Daniel to act. He needed food, water, something normal to ground himself. He looked at Milo. "What if we go together?" Milo tilted his head slightly. Daniel took a slow step toward the door again. Milo hesitated this time. He did not block immediately. Instead, he moved closer, pressing tightly against Daniel's leg, as if deciding whether to allow it. "That is it," Daniel murmured. "We go together." With one careful motion, he turned the handle and opened the door just a little. The hallway beyond looked exactly the same as always. Empty, quiet, still. Daniel opened the door wider. Milo stayed glued to him, every muscle alert. They stepped out together. The air in the hallway felt colder than it should have been. Daniel paused. "Do you feel that?" he whispered. Milo's ears flicked. They moved slowly, step by step, toward the living room. Nothing appeared out of place. The furniture was exactly where it had been. The windows were closed. The front door was locked. Everything looked normal, and yet nothing felt normal. Daniel walked into the kitchen. Milo followed so closely that their movements became almost synchronized. Daniel reached for a glass. The moment his hand touched it, Milo suddenly froze. Then, very slowly, Milo turned his head. Not toward Daniel, not toward the door, toward the reflection in the dark kitchen window. Daniel noticed the shift. "What is it?" he asked. Milo staring. Daniel followed his gaze. At first, he saw only his own reflection. Pale, tired, eyes slightly sunken from the sleepless night. And beside him, Milo. But then something felt off. Daniel leaned closer to the glass. His reflection leaned closer too. Milo's reflection remained still. Daniel frowned. He glanced down at Milo. The dog was standing rigid, staring upward. Daniel looked back at the window. This time, he focused only on Milo's reflection. It did not match. The angle was wrong. The posture was wrong. And slowly, with a growing sense of dread, Daniel realized something that made his stomach drop. The reflection of Milo was not looking at him. It was looking past him, at something behind him. Daniel did not turn around immediately. Every instinct screamed at him to stay still. His heartbeat thundered in his chest. "Milo," he whispered. The real Milo let out a soft, urgent sound. "Do not turn." But it was too late. Daniel turned. The kitchen was empty. Nothing there. No movement. No sound. Just silence. But the feeling remained. That something had been there, and had just moved. Daniel stepped back, his breath unsteady. "Okay," he said, trying to steady himself. "Okay. This is not real. This is just stress." Milo did not agree. The dog backed away from the center of the room, moving toward the wall, keeping Daniel within reach, but avoiding open space, avoiding exposure. Daniel noticed that. "You do not want to stand in the middle," he said quietly. Milo's eyes flicked toward him, understanding. Hors confirmation. Daniel swallowed. "All right, we stay close to the walls." They moved together again, this time more carefully, more deliberately, every step measured. The house felt different now, not like a home, like a place that was being watched. Daniel grabbed some food quickly, his movements tense. The moment he turned back toward the hallway, Milo froze again. Then came the sound. Soft, faint, but unmistakable. Footsteps, not from outside, not from above, from inside the house, from the direction of the bedroom. Daniel's blood ran cold. He and Milo stood perfectly still, listening. The footsteps were slow, dragging slightly, as if something was learning how to move. Step, Pause, Step. Closer. Milo pressed himself against Daniel, trembling. The sound reached the hallway. Stopped. Silence again. Daniel's breathing became shallow. He did not dare move. Seconds stretched into something unbearable. And then a soft tap from the bedroom door. Once. Then again. Tap. Tap. Daniel felt his vision blur for a moment. That was impossible. They had left the bedroom. They were standing in the kitchen. There should be nothing inside that room. And yet something was there, knocking. From the inside, Milo let out a low, continuous whine. Not loud, but filled with fear. Daniel slowly shook his head. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." The tapping stopped, and then came a sound that made everything worse. A voice. Zoft. Familiar. Calling his name. Daniel. It sounded like him. Not exactly, but close enough. Daniel felt something inside him break, because in that moment, he understood. Whatever was in his house was trying to become him, and Milo had known from the beginning. Daniel did not answer. Every instinct inside him screamed to stay silent, to not react, to not acknowledge the voice that called his name from behind that closed door. Milo pressed harder against his leg, as if anchoring him to reality. "Daniel," the voice came again, softer this time, closer, and wrong in a way that was impossible to explain. It sounded like him, but hollow, like something had learned the shape of his voice without understanding what made it human. Daniel slowly shook his head, whispering under his breath, "That is not me. That is not me." Milo let out a faint, urgent sound, as if agreeing. The house felt smaller now, tighter, like the walls had shifted inward. Another tap came from the bedroom door. This time, slower, more deliberate. Tap, pause, tap. Daniel stepped back. One step, then another. Milo followed instantly, never breaking contact. "We leave," Daniel whispered. The decision came suddenly, but it felt right. They needed to get out. Now, without another word, Daniel moved toward the front door. His movements were controlled, careful, but quick. Every second felt borrowed. Behind him, the voice stopped. The silence that followed was worse. He reached the door. His hand hovered over the handle. For a moment, he hesitated, because something inside him knew. The moment he opened that door, something would change. But staying was not an option. He turned the handle. The door opened. Fresh air rushed in. Light spilled across the floor. Daniel stepped outside. Milo moved with him. The moment both of them crossed the threshold, Daniel slammed the door shut behind them and stumbled forward, breathing hard, as if he had been underwater and had just surfaced. They stood there in the open, in the quiet safety of the morning. Nothing followed, no sound, no movement, just stillness. Daniel turned slowly, staring at the house. It looked the same as always, calm, ordinary, empty, but he knew better now. Milo stood beside him, still alert, still watching the door. Minutes passed, then more. Nothing happened. Gradually, Daniel's breathing slowed. "We are okay," he said softly. "We are outside. It is over." Milo did not relax. He kept staring at the house. Daniel followed his gaze. The curtains in the living room window shifted slightly, just a little, as if something inside had moved past them. Daniel felt the fear return instantly, sharp and cold. "Okay," he whispered. "We are not going back in." He reached into his pocket, pulling out his phone with trembling hands. No signal. He frowned. That made no sense. He stepped farther away from the house. Still no signal. A slow, creeping realization began to form. He looked around. The street was empty. No neighbors, no cars, no distant sounds of life. Just silence. Too much silence. "Milo," he said quietly. The dog finally looked away from the house. And then, slowly, Milo turned his head toward the street behind them. Daniel followed his gaze. At first, he saw nothing. Then, a figure, standing far down the road. Still, watching. Daniel's chest tightened. "Do you see that?" he whispered. Milo stiffened. The figure did not move. It stood there, just within sight. too far to make out details, but close enough to feel its presence. And then it took a step forward, slow, unnatural. Daniel felt a wave of dread wash over him. "No," he murmured. "No, no, no." Another step, closer now. The shape became clearer. The posture, the height, the way it moved. Daniel's breath caught in his throat, because the figure looked like him. Not perfectly, not yet, but close enough. Milo let out a low growl, stepping slightly in front of Daniel. Protecting him, the thing down the road tilted its head, just slightly, as if observing. Learning, Daniel took a step back. The thing mirrored him, perfectly, step for step. Daniel froze. The thing froze. Silence stretched between them. And then, slowly, the thing began to smile. A wide, unnatural smile that did not belong on a human face. Daniel's voice shook. "What? What do you want?" The thing did not answer, but its mouth moved. And from that distance, carried by the still air, came a faint, distorted echo. "Daniel," Milo barked sharply. The sound broke the moment. Daniel turned, grabbing Milo's collar instinctively. "We run," he said. They turned and moved quickly down the opposite direction of the road, not looking back. But Daniel could feel it. That presence. Following, not fast, not rushing, just walking, matching their pace, learning, waiting. Minutes passed, or maybe longer. Daniel's legs began to ache, his breath uneven. Finally, he dared to glance back. The road behind them was empty. No figure, no movement, nothing. He slowed, stopped, turned fully. Still nothing. "It is gone," he said, though he was not sure. Milo did not relax. He kept scanning, watching. Daniel bent down slightly, placing a hand on Milo's head. "You knew," he whispered. "From the beginning, you knew something was wrong." Milo looked up at him, calmer now, but still alert, still aware. Daniel swallowed hard. "Thank you," he said quietly. The wind moved gently through the trees. The world slowly began to sound normal again. Distanoise, a faint hum of life returning. But something had changed. Daniel knew it, because as he stood there, catching his breath, he noticed something in the reflection of a nearby car window. He stepped closer. His reflection stared back at him, tired, pale, sharpened, and beside him, Milo. But for just a second, just a fraction of a moment, Daniel saw it. His reflection smiled. Before he did, Daniel froze. The smile disappeared instantly. Everything looked normal again, but it was too late, because now he understood the truth. Leaving the house had not ended it. It had only followed him, and Milo, still standing at his side, had not stopped watching, because whatever that thing was, it was still there, still learning, still trying to become him.